bricklayer wins the lottery and deceives his wife to avoid sharing the prize, but discovers a shocking secret on the day of the divorce. Richard was 43 years old and a bricklayer by profession. His marriage to Angela, who was 47, had always been solid, even though they faced financial hardships. They lived a simple life, but were deeply committed to each other. Angela, a homemaker, managed everything with precision, ensuring that bills were paid and the house was well kept. They didn't have luxury, but they had something many considered even more valuable: love and companionship. Everything changed the day Richard discovered he had won the lottery. He was stunned to check the numbers and realize he was the winner of an incalculable fortune. The ticket was there, holding the promise of a different life, a life of wealth and luxury, free from the financial worries that plagued him daily. Initially, Richard thought about telling Angela. However, a more selfish thought soon emerged. He wanted the money all to himself. After all, he was the one who had been buying the lottery tickets weekly with the little money he could spare. Angela wouldn't know what to do with so much money, he thought. With this distorted logic, Richard decided that the best way to keep the prize was to divorce her. Without wasting time, he began planning the divorce. First, he went to the registry office to collect the necessary documents. A total separation of assets was crucial to ensure that Angela wouldn't have any right to the lottery money. He meticulously planned every detail to ensure she wouldn't suspect anything. One day, while talking to his neighbor, Mrs. Sadie Smith, a chatty and curious elderly lady, Richard mentioned his lottery win with a hint of superiority. Mrs. Sadie Smith was surprised, but it was Janice, her 21-year-old daughter, who truly caught Richard off guard. Janice, a law student, was furious when she heard about Richard's plan to hide the money from Angela. She knew it was morally wrong and possibly illegal. Janice kept the secret, but a sense of injustice grew within her. She had known Angela since childhood and couldn't allow such a thing to happen to such a good woman. Janice decided she would help Angela, but needed time to figure out the best way to do so. Meanwhile, Richard continued with his plans, believing he was in control of everything until he made a decision the following day. Richard sat at the kitchen table, watching Angela as she prepared breakfast. He was nervous, but decided it was the right time to present the divorce papers. After a few minutes of silence, he finally spoke. "Angela, we need to talk," he said, trying to keep his voice steady. Angela turned to him, a look of curiosity mixed with concern on her face. "What is it, Richard? Did something happen?" Richard took a deep breath and placed the papers on the table. "I want a divorce." Angela was stunned, unable to process what she was hearing. "What? Why? What happened?" "I just don't love you anymore, Angela. I think it's better for both of us to go our separate ways," he lied, trying to sound convincing. Angela picked up the papers and began flipping through them, still in disbelief. "This doesn't make sense. We've always had a good marriage. What changed all of a sudden?" "There's nothing strange. I'm just tired," Richard replied, avoiding her gaze. Angela felt a lump in her throat, but something inside her said there was more to this. She knew Richard was hiding something. Determined to find out the truth, she put the papers back on the table. "I'm not signing this," she said firmly, "not until I know what's really going on." Richard tried to insist, but Angela left the kitchen, leaving him alone with his thoughts. She needed help and knew exactly who to turn to. Angela went to Mrs. Sadie Smith's house and found Janice studying in the living room. She sat next to the young woman and told her about Richard's request for a divorce. "He said he doesn't love me anymore, but I know something is wrong," Angela said, tears in her eyes. "I don't know what to do." Janice, who was already aware of the situation, held Angela's hand. "Aunt Angela, I need to tell you something. It's about Richard and the lottery." Angela looked at Janice, confused. "Lottery? What are you talking about?" Janice explained everything about the conversation she had overheard between Richard and her mother, Sadie Smith. She revealed that Richard had won the lottery and was planning the divorce to keep all the money for himself. "I knew he was hiding something," Angela said, feeling a mix of anger and sadness. "But I didn't expect this from him." "We need to act fast," Janice said. "I will talk to my professors and some well-known lawyers I know to see how we can proceed. Don't worry, we will find a way to sort this out." In the following days, Janice consulted various law professors and experienced lawyers about Angela's case. She detailed the situation, seeking advice on how to protect Angela's rights and ensure Richard didn't get away with his attempt to deceive her. Meanwhile, Angela began to observe Richard more closely, trying to find clues about the lottery ticket. She knew that if she could find the ticket, she would have an ace up her sleeve to confront him. As Richard continued to press Angela to sign the divorce papers, she remained steadfast. She knew the truth was about to be revealed and that with Janice's help, she would be able to confront Richard and secure what was rightfully hers. Angela and Janice sat at Mrs. Sadie Smith's kitchen table with a clear plan in front of them. They knew they had to be cautious, but they also knew time was against them. Richard continued to press Angela to sign the divorce papers, and with each passing day, he became more insistent and impatient. "First, we need to find the ticket," Janice pointed out, indicating the first step in their plan. "Without it, our chances of success are greatly reduced." Angela nodded. "He always carries his wallet with him, but there are times he leaves it at home, like when he takes a shower or goes to sleep. We need to take advantage of those opportunities." Janice agreed. "Additionally, we need to document everything. We need evidence that he's trying to hide the lottery ticket from you to benefit from the divorce. That will be crucial if we need to go to court." With the plan in hand, Angela returned home determined to follow each step carefully. She began to watch Richard more closely, paying attention to his habits and routines. Every moment he left his wallet out of sight was a potential opportunity. Meanwhile, Janice was busy seeking advice from her professors and lawyers. She discussed the case in detail, receiving guidance on how to proceed legally. The lawyers suggested several strategies, including the possibility of filing a petition in court to prevent the completion of the divorce until the ticket issue was resolved. That night, Richard was especially insistent. He handed the divorce papers to Angela again, with a clear expression of frustration on his face. "Angela, this needs to end. Why are you making this so difficult?" he said, trying to stay calm. Angela looked Richard straight in the eyes. "I won't sign anything until I know the truth, Richard. You're hiding something from me, and I won't give up until I find out what it is." Richard tried to disguise his impatience. "There's nothing to find out. Just sign the papers and move on." Angela stood firm. "I won't sign. Not until I know the truth." Richard huffed and left the room, leaving Angela alone. She knew she was playing a dangerous game, but she was determined not to give in. Days passed, and the tension in the house grew every moment. Richard was increasingly nervous and suspicious, and Angela knew she had to act soon. Finally, the opportunity she had been waiting for arrived. One night, Richard left his wallet on the kitchen table before going to take a shower. Angela waited until she heard the shower running before quietly approaching the table. With trembling hands, she opened the wallet and began searching for the lottery ticket. Her heart raced as she found the piece of paper hidden among some receipts. There it was, the lottery ticket that would change their lives forever. Angela took the ticket and quickly hid it in a safe place. When Richard came out of the shower, Angela was calmly sitting at the table as if nothing had happened. He did not notice the ticket was missing and continued his routine, still believing he was in control of the situation. The next morning, Angela went to Mrs. Sadie Smith's house to meet with Janice. They reviewed the plan and discussed the next steps. Janice was confident that, with the ticket in hand, they could confront Richard and ensure that Angela received her fair share of the prize. "Now that we have the ticket, we need to be ready for anything," Janice said. "Let's prepare a meeting at the notary's office, and when Richard least expects it, we'll reveal everything." Richard continued to insist that Angela sign the divorce papers. 2 days after finding the ticket, Angela approached Richard during breakfast. She knew she had to play her cards carefully. "Richard, I've thought a lot about all this," Angela said, keeping her voice calm and controlled. "I'm willing to sign the divorce papers." Richard looked at her, surprised, but soon a smile of satisfaction appeared on his face. "Finally, Angela. I thought we'd never get to this point. Let's just get this over with." Angela took a deep breath, knowing she needed to keep calm for the plan to work. "But I need 2 days to mentally prepare myself. This is all so sudden, and I need some time to accept it." Confident that he had already won, Richard nodded. "All right, Angela, 2 days, but no more than that." Angela nodded and walked away, pretending to be resigned. Richard, in his arrogance, didn't even think to check his wallet. He was so sure that Angela was surrendering that he didn't notice the lottery ticket was no longer there. Angela felt a mix of relief and nervousness. She knew she had 2 days to finalize the plan with Janice and ensure the truth was revealed. While Richard believed everything was going according to his plan, Angela and Janice were preparing to turn the tables. With 2 days of preparation ahead, Angela and Janice knew they needed to be meticulous about every detail. The final battle was about to begin, and Angela was determined to fight for what was rightfully hers. Angela returned to Mrs. Sadie Smith's house, where Janice awaited her with a determined expression on her face. They knew the next 2 days were crucial to ensure Richard didn't escape the consequences of his actions. "We don't have much time, Aunt Angela," said Janice, adjusting her glasses as she reviewed a stack of documents. "We need to make sure everything is in order for the day of the divorce." Angela nodded, feeling the gravity of the situation. "I'm ready. What do we need to do first?" Janice smiled, appreciating Angela's determination. "First, we need to consult with the lawyers. They'll help us prepare all the necessary documents and devise the best strategy to ensure Richard can't escape." They spent the rest of the day in meetings with renowned lawyers who listened attentively to Angela's story. The professionals were outraged by Richard's behavior and committed to doing everything necessary to protect Angela's rights. "We'll need solid evidence," one of the lawyers said, reviewing the case. "The lottery ticket will be our main evidence, but we also need documents that prove he was trying to deceive you, Angela." Angela explained how she had found the ticket in Richard's wallet and handed it to the lawyer. "Here it is. I hope this is enough." "It's a good start," the lawyer replied. "But we need more. We'll prepare a formal statement from you and gather all the additional evidence we can." Over the next 2 days, Angela and Janice worked tirelessly. They collected text messages, recordings of conversations, and any other document that could be useful. The lawyers drafted a detailed petition to be presented in court if necessary. Additionally, Janice met with her law professors, who offered valuable advice and moral support. "You're doing the right thing, Janice," one of the professors said. "Defending justice and protecting the innocent is what motivates us to study and practice law." With all the legal details covered, Angela and Janice mentally prepared for the final confrontation. They knew the day of the divorce would be tense and full of emotions, but they were determined to face Richard and ensure he didn't get away with it. The night before the meeting at the notary's office, Angela sat down with Janice and Mrs. Sadie Smith. "I couldn't do this without you," Angela said, moved. "Thank you for standing by my side." "You're a strong woman, Aunt Angela," Janice said, holding her hand. "We will ensure that justice prevails." Mrs. Sadie Smith, with tears in her eyes, hugged Angela. "We're all with you, my dear. Everything will be all right." The day of the divorce finally arrived. Angela woke up early, feeling a mix of nervousness and determination. She dressed carefully, choosing an outfit that conveyed confidence and strength. She knew she would face Richard with her head held high and was ready to fight for what was rightfully hers. Janice and the lawyers arrived early to accompany her to the notary's office. They reviewed the documents one last time, ensuring everything was in order. "It's going to be all right, Aunt Angela," Janice said, trying to convey calm and confidence. "We're all with you." Angela smiled gratefully and, together with Janice and the lawyers, headed to the notary's office. When they arrived, Richard was already there, exuding an air of superiority and a confident smile on his face. He believed he was about to get exactly what he wanted. "Angela, finally," Richard said, seeing her enter. "Let's get this over with." Angela looked at him, maintaining her composure. "Yes, Richard, let's." They sat at the table where the divorce papers were ready to be signed. The notary officer began explaining the procedures. Angela and Richard signed the papers, formalizing the divorce. After signing, Richard leaned back in his chair with a triumphant smile. "Before we part, Angela, I have a surprise for you." Angela looked at him, feigning curiosity. "What is it?" Richard, reveling in the moment, proudly revealed, "I won the lottery." Angela kept a neutral expression, while Janice and the lawyers watched attentively. "You what?" "That's right," Richard continued arrogantly. "I won a fortune in the lottery, and now that we're divorced, I don't have to share anything with you. All the money will be mine." Angela remained calm and serene. She looked directly into Richard's eyes. "Is that true, Richard? Did you really win the lottery?" "Yes, it's true," Richard replied, with a smirk of superiority. "And now that you're out of my life, I can enjoy it all by myself." Angela then pulled the lottery ticket out of her pocket and placed it on the table. "Are you talking about this ticket, Richard?" Richard's expression instantly changed from arrogance to shock. "What? How did you get that?" "I found it in your wallet," Angela said firmly, "and I've already claimed the prize. The money is in my account." Richard turned pale, unable to believe what he was hearing. "That's not possible. You can't do that." Angela looked at the lawyers, who began to explain the legal situation. "Richard, you tried to deceive me to keep all the money for yourself, but now the truth is on my side, and I have proof that you tried to hide this from me all this time." The lawyers presented all the documents and evidence they had gathered, including Angela's statement and records of conversations they had recorded. The notary officer listened attentively, understanding the gravity of the situation. Richard tried to argue, but he knew he was cornered. He had never expected that Angela would discover his plan and act so swiftly. His arrogance and greed had been his downfall. Angela, feeling stronger than ever, looked at Richard with determination. "You tried to betray me, Richard, but I am not a weak woman, and now justice will be served. Justice will..." The day of the divorce finally arrived. Angela woke up early, feeling a mix of nervousness and determination. She dressed carefully, choosing an outfit that conveyed confidence and strength. She knew she would face Richard with her head held high and was ready to fight for what was rightfully hers. Janice and the lawyers arrived early to accompany her to the notary's office. They reviewed the documents one last time, ensuring everything was in order. "It's going to be all right, Aunt Angela," Janice said, trying to convey calm and confidence. "We're all with you." Angela smiled gratefully and, together with Janice and the lawyers, headed to the notary's office. When they arrived, Richard was already there, exuding an air of superiority and a confident smile on his face. He believed he was about to get exactly what he wanted. "Angela, finally," Richard said, seeing her enter. "Let's get this over with." Angela looked at him, maintaining her composure. "Yes, Richard, let's." They sat at the table where the divorce papers were ready to be signed. The notary officer began explaining the procedures. Angela and Richard signed the papers, formalizing the divorce. After signing, Richard leaned back in his chair with a triumphant smile. "Before we part, Angela, I have a surprise for you." Angela looked at him, feigning curiosity. "What is it?" Richard, reveling in the moment, proudly revealed, "I won the lottery." Angela kept a neutral expression, while Janice and the lawyers watched attentively. "You what?" "That's right," Richard continued arrogantly. "I won a fortune in the lottery, and now that we're divorced, I don't have to share anything with you. All the money will be mine." Angela remained calm and serene. She looked directly into Richard's eyes. "Is that true, Richard? Did you really win the lottery?" "Yes, it's true," Richard replied, with a smirk of superiority. "And now that you're out of my life, I can enjoy it all by myself." Angela then pulled the lottery ticket out of her pocket and placed it on the table. "Are you talking about this ticket, Richard?" Richard's expression instantly changed from arrogance to shock. "What? How did you get that?" "I found it in your wallet," Angela said firmly, "and I've already claimed the prize. The money is in my account." Richard turned pale, unable to believe what he was hearing. "That's not possible. You can't do that." Angela looked at the lawyers, who began to explain the legal situation. "Richard, you tried to deceive me to keep all the money for yourself, but now the truth is on my side, and I have proof that you tried to hide this from me all this time." The lawyers presented all the documents and evidence they had gathered, including Angela's statement and records of conversations they had recorded. The notary officer listened attentively, understanding the gravity of the situation. Richard tried to argue, but he knew he was cornered. He had never expected that Angela would discover his plan and act so swiftly. His arrogance and greed had been his downfall. Angela, feeling stronger than ever, looked at Richard with determination. "You tried to betray me, Richard, but I am not a weak woman, and now justice will be served. Justice will..." After the bombshell revelation at the notary's office, Richard was stunned. He couldn't believe that Angela had uncovered everything and claimed the lottery prize. Desperate and out of options, he decided to try one last move to save his fortune. "Angela, wait," Richard said, his voice trembling and desperate. "We don't need to do this. We can undo the divorce. I still love you. We can start over." Angela looked at him with a serious yet serene expression. "Richard, you don't love me. If you did, you would never have tried to deceive me like this. You just want the money." Richard shook his head, trying to appear sincere. "No, Angela. I was confused. I made a mistake. Let's start over. We can sort this out together." Angela knew Richard was just trying to save his own skin. She had seen his true face and was not willing to go back, but at the same time, she didn't want to be as cruel as he had been. "Richard, I will not undo the divorce," Angela said firmly. "But despite what you did, I believe in justice and generosity. Let's split the prize fairly, half for you and half for me." Richard looked at her, surprised. "Are you serious? Even after everything I did?" "Yes, I'm serious," Angela replied. "I am not like you, Richard. I believe in doing the right thing. And the right thing is to split the prize, since we were married when you won." The lawyers present were impressed by Angela's generosity. They began preparing the necessary documents for the division of the prize, ensuring everything was done legally and fairly. Richard, still shocked by Angela's offer, finally nodded. He knew that, after everything, this was the best offer he could receive. "All right, Angela, let's split the prize." As the lawyers worked on the documents, Richard stepped aside, reflecting on his actions. He knew he had lost much more than just money. He had lost Angela's trust and respect, and now, even with half of the prize, his victory felt empty. Angela, on the other hand, felt at peace. She knew she had done the right thing, not just for herself, but also to show Richard that integrity and justice prevail. But to divide the prize, the lawyers needed 3 days to prepare the papers and distribute the prize equally. This delay was necessary to ensure that all legal requirements were met and that the division was handled with precision and fairness. During these 3 days, Angela and Richard had time to reflect on their circumstances and prepare for the final agreement. The sun was high in the sky when Angela and Richard returned to the notary's office to finalize the division of the lottery prize. The atmosphere was tense, but Angela felt an inner calm. She knew she was doing the right thing, not only for herself, but also to show that even in the face of betrayal, justice and integrity prevail. The lawyers had worked meticulously on the documents over the past 3 days, ensuring that every detail was covered and that the money division was fair. Angela entered the notary's office with Janice by her side, feeling empowered by the young woman's presence and the unwavering support she had provided throughout the ordeal. Richard was waiting, his expression one of resignation. He knew there was no turning back. The notary officer greeted them and asked them to sit down. "Ladies and gentlemen, we are here to formalize the division of the lottery prize," the officer began. "Both parties have agreed to divide the prize equally. Let us proceed with signing the documents." Angela and Richard signed the papers, officializing the division of the prize. Half of the money would go to Angela and the other half to Richard. When the last signature was made, Angela felt a sense of relief. Finally, the battle was over. Richard, with slumped shoulders, looked at Angela. "I hope you find happiness, Angela." Angela met his gaze and responded with a firm but gentle voice. "I hope you find your way, Richard." With that, Angela stood up and left the notary's office, feeling the weight of recent events begin to dissipate. Janice followed her, holding her hand in a gesture of solidarity. "You were amazing, Aunt Angela," Janice said with a smile of pride. "I am very proud of you." Angela smiled back, feeling a wave of gratitude for Janice. "I couldn't have done this without you, my dear. Your help was invaluable." On the way home, Angela began to think about how she could use her share of the prize to do good. An idea came to her mind, and she knew exactly what to do. As soon as they arrived, Angela called Mrs. Sadie Smith and Janice for a talk. "I want to do something to show my gratitude," Angela said, looking at them with a sparkle in her eyes. "I want to help you, just as you have helped me." Mrs. Sadie Smith and Janice were surprised. "Angela, you don't need to do this," Mrs. Sadie Smith said, tears in her eyes. "I know I don't need to, but I want to," Angela replied firmly. "You have been my family when I needed it most, and I want to give back." Angela decided to use part of the money to fund Janice's education. She knew the young woman had a bright future ahead and wanted to ensure she had every possible opportunity. Additionally, Angela would also help Mrs. Sadie Smith's family, providing financial support so they could live with more comfort and security. The following weeks were a time of renewal and hope. With the lottery money, Angela managed to transform her life and the lives of those around her. She invested wisely, ensuring a secure and stable future. The gratitude and generosity she demonstrated only strengthened the bonds of friendship and affection with Janice and her family. Janice, for her part, dedicated herself even more to her studies, determined to graduate and pursue a career in law. She knew Angela believed in her and wanted to honor that trust. Over the years, Angela's life changed remarkably. The generosity with which she divided the lottery prize not only secured her financial security, but also provided a promising future for Janice. The seeds of hope they planted began to bear fruit. Janice dedicated herself to her studies, determined to honor the trust and support Angela had placed in her. Her effort and dedication paid off, and finally, the day of her graduation arrived. Angela, Mrs. Sadie Smith, and other friends and family gathered to celebrate Janice's achievement. The pride and joy were palpable in the air. "I'm so proud of you, Janice," said Angela, with tears of joy in her eyes. "You worked hard to get here, and I know you have a bright future ahead." Janice smiled, moved. "I couldn't have done this without your support, Aunt Angela. I am eternally grateful for everything you've done for me." After graduation, Janice was hired by the largest law firm in the city, renowned for its excellence and professionalism. Her talent and dedication quickly stood out, and she began to build a solid and promising career. Angela, for her part, decided to invest part of her prize in a new venture. She purchased a small commercial building in the city, where she opened a crafts store. The business quickly prospered, attracting customers for its authenticity and quality. Angela, always humble, remained true to her roots and continued to work hard, building a new life for herself. The partnership between Angela and Janice grew even stronger. With the new business, Angela frequently sought legal advice from Janice, who was more than happy to help. They developed a strong professional partnership, combining Angela's life experience and wisdom with Janice's legal knowledge and youthful energy. Beyond the professional aspect, the friendship between Angela and Janice deepened profoundly. They became true confidants, sharing moments of joy and challenges. Angela found in Janice not just a competent lawyer, but a loyal friend and almost a daughter-like figure. One afternoon, while having tea in Janice's office, Angela reflected on the journey that had brought them here. "Life is full of surprises, isn't it, Janice? Who would have thought that, after everything we've been through, we would be here, building something so beautiful together?" Janice smiled, agreeing. "Yes, Aunt Angela, and it just shows how resilient and strong you are. You turned a difficult situation into an opportunity for growth and renewal. You're an inspiration to all of us." Angela smiled, feeling deep gratitude. "And you, Janice, showed me that there is always hope and that good always prevails. I am so grateful to have you by my side." As time passed, Angela became a respected and beloved figure in the community. Her craft store thrived, and she became a mentor to many young women, encouraging them to pursue their dreams and never give up, regardless of the obstacles they encountered along the way. Janice, now a successful lawyer, continued to fight for justice, inspired by Angela's example. Together, they not only transformed their own lives, but also positively impacted the community around them. While Angela and Janice thrived in their new lives, Richard faced a very different reality. After the division of the lottery prize, he believed his fortune was secured. However, his lack of planning and impulsiveness quickly turned his wealth into a financial disaster. Richard began spending money recklessly. Luxurious parties, extravagant trips, and impulsive purchases became constants in his life. Fair-weather friends and opportunistic acquaintances took advantage of his generosity, exploiting his newfound fortune. Without any financial control or long-term thinking, Richard saw his money slip through his fingers. In less than a year, Richard was on the brink of bankruptcy. The parties became less frequent, and the trips a distant memory. He accumulated significant debts, and creditors started knocking on his door. Without the friends who disappeared as quickly as they arrived, Richard found himself alone, facing the consequences of his choices. Sitting in his modest apartment, a far cry from the luxurious home he had dreamed of, Richard reflected on his life. He realized that his greed and arrogance had not only driven Angela away, but also destroyed his chance for a stable and happy future. The memories of betrayals and mistakes weighed heavily on his shoulders. Without money and friends, Richard began looking for jobs to support himself, but his reputation and age made the task difficult. He regretted the wasted opportunities and the life he could have had if he had made different choices. Every day, Richard felt the weight of the consequences of his actions. The bitter lesson he learned was that money alone does not bring happiness or stability. It was the value of human relationships, honesty, and integrity that truly mattered. Lessons he learned too late.